Everyone has their own comfort games, whether it be Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, the occasional Doom, maybe Dark Souls, or slaying zombies in Dead Island. And while I like to make time as much as I can to slay zombies, there's a certain genre that is really special to me and that holds a really special place in my heart, and that is the 3D platformer genre. I love 3D platformers of all kinds, whether it be a Sunset Overdrive, Gory Cully Carnage. My most favorite is the collectathon style of 3D platformer, the Banjo-Kazooies, Yooka-Laylee, Spyro, and so on. Games like Hell Pie, games that I can just get lost in, that feed me a story, give me bits and bobs of information, allow me to explore all of these little mini open world type locations, or even linear levels for the most part with secrets hidden around. They allow me to look at all the art and the characters and the design, and they're usually very straightforward, and it's all about finding all the collectibles and reaching the end of the game. And you get enough story to keep you going, but it's really all about the vibes. It's about the environments, the atmosphere, the music, the art design, and the world. It's about the main character. How fun is it to play? How fun is the movement? Are the abilities cool? Are the unlockables fun? Is it enjoyable to get around? Whether you're swimming, jumping, flying, gliding, or just hovering around, it's still really relaxing to just play in these very simple, simplistic, enjoyable games about just collecting things, making progress, solving the occasional puzzle, fighting the occasional boss, and just a very straightforward video game for the sake of being a video game. Relatively kid-friendly, but for the most part, enjoyed by anyone. I've loved 3D platformers since I was a little kid playing Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, and Spyro the Dragon. They'll always hold a special place in my heart. My son really loves 3D platformers. He loves games like A Short Hike, games like Super Kiwi 64, MacBat 64. He also really loves Yooka-Laylee, and I'm a big fan of that. And I can't wait for the new Yooka-Laylee remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it. I started playing KO the Kangaroo, just a good old classic 3D platformer. It's a lot of fun. Thinking about playing, Turbo Terry's something adventure or whatever. Kind of looks like the evolution of A Short Hike's premise. Almost 3D platformer GTA. It just looks entertaining. The games always have a cool style and just visually stand out and are fun, entertaining. The first game that I ever got early access to, and the first game that I ever got to review early, was Clive and Wrench. That game was stunning. It was such a fun experience. I still need to buy a physical copy of it for my Switch. I still want to get it for my son. It's such a cool game. And it is a pretty good entry point, relatively easy to 100%. And I don't care that it was easy to 100%, because the fun is in the collecting. If you make it too hard, because occasionally 3D platformers have been known to become a bit bloated, games like Donkey Kong 64 and even Banjo-Tooie really start to push the fun of 3D platformers. When it becomes extremely challenging to 100% something, it takes the fun out a little bit. You know, when you're playing an Assassin's Creed game, especially the more recent ones, trying to 100% them is going to take you an extra 80 hours on top of the already 30 to 60 hour long base game. 100%ing something shouldn't be a chore. It should just be a fun time to figure it all out and do it all. It shouldn't be super duper easy, but it shouldn't be crazy difficult to accomplish. And that's what I've always loved about 3D platformers. That's why I loved there was a whole resurgence of these games. I still need to play Demon Turf. I love A Hat in Time. I still need to play Super Mario Odyssey. I even want to play Kirby's Forgotten Land. It looks so good. I love these kind of games. It was cool to get KO the Kangaroo. I want to play Corn Kids 64. There's so many cool games that are just these really interesting 3D platformers. And games like A Short Hike kind of opened up this weird, different 3D platformer sandbox open world genre that was inspired by games like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and its kind of open-ended design, but then kind of boiled down into these like indie platformer game. So it's basically a 3D platformer, but also a sandbox game akin to Goat Simulator, where you don't really have a goal. Well, you have a goal, but like you can kind of go about accomplishing the goal in any way you see fit. And I think that's a really cool evolution of 3D platformers, because usually they're pretty level based, or they're like multiple different hub worlds and very boss based, whatever. But I think games like a Short Hike kind of games, I think Jacent kind of falls into that category. I haven't really played that one. I think they just offer this freedom to kind of go in any direction, accomplish tasks or quests or whatever without a quest marker, without something telling you to go here or go there. You have, like, for instance, in a Short Hike, your main goal is to reach the top of the mountain so you can get cell signal to call your mom. You can accomplish that goal in probably 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours, or at max I would say 3 to 5 hours depending on how much you're doing. And there's actually quite a bit to do in that little open world. It's a fully open world, seamless open world game, and there's quite a bit to do. It was actually one of the earliest games that I bought my son for his Switch because, one, it's relatively cheap, it's not crazy long, but for a little kid, it doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't make you go into a tutorial or nothing like that. It's very straightforward and it's very easy to figure out. It's open world and it's just like a cool experience. It's a chill game. That's why I want to play the Turbo Terry game, because it seems like that, but upgraded a little bit more chaos, a little bit more variety of things to do. And I think that's kind of cool. I think that's what we want, right? Innovation, evolution, constantly changing and iterating. Something like a Short Hike may be more, like of a relatively new game, but it's not a new concept per se. It's a melding of concepts that created a new genre. It's melding the concept of 3D platformers with open-ended design of certain RPGs. It's taking freedom and just maximizing it. It's saying, hey, this is your sandbox, like Goat Simulator would offer you, but instead, it's a more kid-friendly experience. It's less, whimsical and dumb and full of glitches, and more refined, handcrafted, beautiful to look at, great music, atmosphere, world building, and just cool characters. Stories to be told, and a powerful journey to go on once you reach the end. But it's all packaged in this world that is your oyster. You choose how to accomplish everything, go about what you want to do, and reach the end goal. And you can take your time, you can do it quickly, and it's not even expensive either. And that's cool. That's just really cool. It's fascinating that somebody could be like, hey, I want to take an open-ended design approach, meld it with 3D platformers, and give multiple different ways that I can reach my goal, but also add in like fishing, rock climbing, playing like volleyball, and driving motorboats around, and swimming, and finding lost treasure, and meeting characters, and all in this like small indie open world sandbox game. Kind of a fascinating approach to game design. And I didn't intend for this to turn into a whole video about a Short Hike. It was just about 3D platformers being comfort games, but I think that really hammers home my point. 3D platformers of all kinds, whether it's a throwback Corn Kid 64, a open world sandbox with an open-ended design like a Short Hike, or a very, typical old school or even new school approach to 3D platformer design, a la Yooka-Laylee, Demon Turf, Hellpie, or something along the lines of Spyro Crash. There's so much variety, but they're all fun and entertaining and relaxing and chill and laid back. They have their moments of challenge occasionally, but they're never that challenging. They're never too difficult. They're usually pretty chill experiences. Usually never too long, don't take that much of a time investment. And honestly, they've inspired many other games to kind of take from that pie and create games that are basically 3D platformers but different. Games like Sunset Overdrive really take the sandbox approach of games like Prototype and Destroy Humans, and they kind of meld it with 3D platformers. Like, I would 100% call Sunset Overdrive a 3D platformer. It is a game that involves constant movement, constantly jumping, bouncing, grinding, rolling, doing moves, shooting enemies, solving puzzles, fighting bosses in a very colorful, beautiful, interesting world with a lot of side quests, challenges, and optional objectives. Overall, a very chill and fun experience. Even if it does have challenge, it's never like a hard game. Like, I would never call it that. Though I would say that Sunset Overdrive is also a great example of open world games that have too many collectibles. As someone who has probably put several hundred hours in Sunset Overdrive, only beat it one time, but I've returned to it so many times just to goof around for 30 minutes or an hour or a couple hours even. Run around the world and collect all the collectibles, issue being that to get all the maps to find all the collectibles, you have to unlock a currency that is insanely hard to unlock and requires a lot of grinding to get all of the currency to then buy the maps that show you where everything is. And as someone who has gotten at least 80% of every collectible in the game, the last 20% would require such a grind of time to not only get the collectibles, but also to get the items that show me where all of them are. It's just a weird choice in design because it's so free-flowing and so stress-free for the most part, and everything works so well. But there's a couple things that kind of throw you for a loop. I mean, the fact that it's so difficult to unlock the maps to show you where all the collectibles are so that you can 100% the game are locked behind a currency that's extremely hard to get, and mostly was farmed, ironically, through a multiplayer mode, which is just a whole nother thing, and that is just, it kills me. It just does, it kills me. And also the game doesn't have multiple save files, it doesn't have a new game plus, so if you want to replay the game, you have to delete all your save progress. But even with that, other games have done it pretty well. But even with examples like that, I think largely Sunset Overdrive does a great job at melding those elements and creating an amazing 3D platformer, even if it fails in certain regards. I think games like South of Midnight is basically a 3D platformer action-adventure game with light combat occasionally, which borders on being very much like the more recent God of War games or even Evil West. So I think a lot of games, do really well at taking from that 3D platformer design book. I think that the game that I gave Game of the Year in 2024 to, Gory Cuddly Carnage, is such an old school throwback game that doesn't quite have the sandbox 3D platformer collectathon approach. It is still a very unique 3D platformer type game that actually takes some inspiration from Sunset Overdrive in its movement, as well as hack and slash games, which makes it really cool. And it's a more linear game, but it does have stuff off the beaten path and extra collectibles and challenges and things like that. It's a really, really fun little game too. Highly recommend it. Definitely recommend checking that one out as soon as you can. Definitely. I was lucky that I stumbled across it on the Xbox store. Otherwise, I probably never would have played it. Once again, another game that I gotta buy a physical copy of on Switch. Ultimately, I think that it's cool that we're getting bite-sized 3D platformers, that we're getting a resurgence of 3D platformers, and that they're still going strong, both in the mainstream and the indie and AA space. I'm glad Nintendo's still making cool 3D platformers with Super Mario Odyssey, Kirby's Forgotten Land, and honestly, you could almost argue in many ways that both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom border on 3D platformer territory at times. I'm glad we're getting games like Gory Cuddly Carnage and Hell Pie, Sunset Overdrive, South of Midnight, and we're just getting cool and interesting games. Ukulele's Remaster, even games like It Takes Two are very much 3D platformers. It Takes Two is a fantastic game that I still have to beat with my fiance. A really, really, really well-crafted experience, and then we're going to go straight into Split Fiction, which I'm sure also has 3D platformer elements. 3D platformers are special to me. They're unique, they're interesting, they're different, they're fun, they're enjoyable, they're relaxing, and they're just fun to sit out and goof around for a little bit. So close to beating Spyro 3 with my son, close to beating SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom with my son. He loves playing all that stuff. And then maybe we'll move on to, SpongeBob Cosmic something? I don't know. SpongeBob Cosmic something. It's like the spiritual successor sequel to Battle for Bikini Bottom. I just love those kind of games. I try to keep my eye out for cool and interesting 3D platformers, which is why I want to check out Corn Kids, and I got him Super Kiwi 64 and stuff like that. Those are all some really cool bite-sized 3D platformers. And honestly, the Lego games are very 3D platformer-esque, and they always were for the longest time, and I still think they should I actually wish that they would stick more to that kind of style than what they've done recently. Kind of miss the old style of those games, back when characters didn't talk and they just had facial expressions and just had their own kind of goofy charm. 3D platformers are one of my favorite genres of all time, some of my favorite games of all time. Banjo-Kazooie, I think, is way better than Super Mario 64. I know, what a good way to start ending the video off, right? Just telling people that Super Mario 64 is not as good as they think it is. No, I'm just kidding. Super Mario 64 is good. Without Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie wouldn't exist. Spyro probably wouldn't exist. potentially. It kind of set a standard for that kind of game and was one of the early examples of 3D games. But on top of that, I do think that Banjo-Kazooie came out and said, hey, we literally did everything you did, but 10 times better. And I still think Banjo-Kazooie is like one of the perfect examples of a 3D platformer that should be copied. I think Banjo-Tooie went a little off the rails. I think Spyro with the first 3 games stayed pretty true to what they initially had with the first game, and while there's a little bit more to 2 and 3 than it takes to 100% them, I still think that they did pretty good in that regard. I think Yooka-Laylee, while being much bigger than Banjo-Kazooie, still kind of stayed in that area. It didn't get too bloated in my opinion. A Hat in Time is a great, like, Super Mario Sunshine-esque game. So I think there's a lot of cool ones out there, and I think, they keep it pretty cool and pretty tight and well-designed and well-crafted. Great music, great gameplay and movement, upgrades, systems, collectibles, and don't make it too bloated. Just tightly designed. Don't make it too long. Just the right length. A chill, relaxing, fun, enjoyable experience is all you need. And 3D platformers will always be needed by both adults and children. They're just fun, and they're even more fun when you can play them together. Thank you all for stopping by. Thank you all for listening to me ramble. The Forge is calling me. Before I go, I must thank Midnight Medium, Osh, and Melancholy Geek for all the support over on Patreon if you guys want to check it out. And thank you all for the support, not only for me, Dead Forge, on this channel, but for the support towards Quad Damage, towards the Gaming Bounty Board, and any and all things that I've been involved in. I really, deeply, and truly appreciate it. I must answer the call, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you, and goodbye.